Day 3 of the precision rifle class. We want to welcome you back. Hope you've enjoyed the last 2 classes. If you haven't watched the last 2 classes, maybe you should before you watch this one. Kind of give you an idea of where we're going. In the last class, or the first class we did, I was talking about wind. I had the shooter at 6 o'clock. I said something about minutes of angle. I can't seem to get that out of my head. This is a full value wind. Those are half value wind. And if it's shooting, there's no value if it's coming from 6 o'clock, if the wind's coming from 6 o'clock or 12 o'clock, there's no value to the wind. It's not going to affect your bullet. And then I talked about barometric pressure in the second class. And I kind of stumbled around that. In the old days, people had an idea of what it was going to make a big change to the bullet. But it actually doesn't have any impact at all. That's what I was trying to say. And I don't know why I got tongue-tied and stumbled around everything. So those are 2 clarifications that I want to make from the last 2 classes. So let's talk about apps. Well, not that many years ago, I had a young man come into class, 3rd day, and he said, "Mr. Griffith, I don't need to be in class anymore. I found an app." I kept this hammer under my podium, because we were always on the range to fix targets, pound staples in, whatever. Took that hammer and I hit his damn phone. I don't know why I did it, but it happened. And then I told him, I says, "Now, show me how to use your app. You put all this money and training in for equipment, training, and then you're going to use a friggin' app that can go down on you any day of the week. It's okay to use that app, but make sure you know what that app is doing for you. And make sure it's doing everything, you understand everything that it's doing for you, because you'll get out in the field, and Murphy's always there, and he's going to bite you in the butt if you don't understand everything that you're going to do. You'll be sitting out there wondering how the hell you're going to get a 0 put on your rifle because you don't have a friggin' app to tell you how to do it. When it comes to long-range shooting, use the military system. Keep it simple, stupid. That's exactly what it means. Keep it simple. Don't confuse yourself with a bunch of bullshit and bullcrap that is going on. So know what you're doing. Keep good records. Know what your zeros are so you can do it manually. Now they have computers you can plug into your damn scope, and it does all the calculation for you. What if that satellite goes down? What if that satellite's out of range? What if you don't have any coverage? You're sitting there lost. Make sure you know what you're doing. If you take care of your equipment, it'll take care of you. And that's basically what it is. Years ago, when I first started out, we didn't have wind meters. When the hang gliders got to going really good, a lot of people were hang gliding here in Idaho. We went to a hang glider shop and we bought a $9.99 little wind meter. The wind blew through, and it was pretty accurate. We figured if the guy's going to put his life into it jumping off a mountain with a hang glider, it'd probably be close enough for us, good enough for us. And it was. So we bought those, and then when Kessler came out, we bought the Kesslers. But the Kessler, everything's got batteries. The other ones ones were manual, but they have batteries now. Anything can happen. So you need to know how to figure your wind, or how to figure out what your wind's doing to you when you're out in the field. A 0 to 5 mile an hour wind, you won't hardly feel it on your face. Or 0 to 5, it'll just be a light wind. You know, you might be able to puff a little smoke and it'll move it away for you. A 5 to 8 mile an hour wind, it'll move the leaves on the ground. It'll blow napkins around. That's a 5 to 8 mile an hour wind. 8 to 12 mile an hour wind, you're going to have a little dust with it. You're going to see a little dust downrange. The grass will be moving a little bit faster. And so you just have to be aware of your surroundings. And 12 to 15 mile an hour wind, it causes small trees to move. The leaves will be moving, small trees will move. In the desert, we don't have small trees, we have sagebrush. So we have to look at it a different way. And anything over 15, it'll be moving trees. Trees will be swaying. So that could be 25 to 30 miles an hour. We call it a swag. Years ago, I called it swag, scientific wild-ass guess when it comes to figuring the wind. Because that wind can gust, it can change on you, and it is something that is probably with it and the Mirage are the two hardest things you'll ever shoot through. Windsocks. If you're using a windsocks are a standard windsock at an airport. Stick straight out when the wind is 15 knots or 17 miles an hour. So if that windsock is out there to pull out, you have a 15 to 17 mile an hour wind. If it's tipped up a little bit, you're above 15 to 17 miles an hour. So a lot of people put windsocks on their ranges to show them the wind direction. It definitely shows you the wind direction, but as far as figuring the speed, it can be iffy. Okay, and as far as knowing which way the wind direction is blowing, just turn around and pretty quick it'll be blowing in your face, and that'll tell you exactly where it's coming from. You know, that's not it's not science work, you know. So, and a lot of people hang a flag out. If it's laying right down to the side, there's no wind. If it's out a little bit, about a 5 mile an hour wind. A little bit higher than that, be a 10. Straight out's about 15. And if it's straight out and it's flaring up a little bit, usually about 25 to 35 miles an hour. That's, I know people that will tie a little ribbon on their rifle stock to check the wind. To me, that's like pissing in the wind. So when it comes to wind, the best thing to do is get out there and lay in a hide, lay on the range, and calculate it in your mind. Look at that Mirage, feel the wind, and get to where you know exactly what it is. Like I told you before, you have to have a passion for this. And the passion is, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to shoot 40 rounds today, and it's going to take me 4 or 5 hours to do it. And I'm going to shoot in every condition that I can shoot in. And I'm going to log every round I shoot, even if it's an hour apart. Even if it's an hour apart on a different page, I'm going to get that calculations that I need to make the perfect shot the day that I need to make that perfect shot at that bull elk that's 700 or 800 yards away. Let's talk about moving targets. In the military, we use the pits. And if you've never been in a pit, there's a concrete bunker above your head, and you can walk around down there and people shoot at targets over your head all day long. You can hear the crack of the bullet going over your head. So what we would do is we'd put a target on a stick, and we'd have the guys walk the pit at a normal pace. No jog, nothing, just a normal pace, and we would shoot at the targets. We got pretty damn good at the full-sized military targets, man-sized targets. But when we cut them in half, as if you were doing this view right here, holy crap, did the rules changed. Everything changed. You had to work at what you were doing. There's two types of, when you're doing moving targets, there's two types of situations, I want to call it, for not having a better word. You either track the target, which means you've got that target in your scope, your crosshair is right where you want it beforehand, and you follow that target, and you squeeze that trigger when you're ready. The other option is that we call is the ambush system. You put your scope in this area here. When that target moves into this area, you kind of do a controlled shot on it. It's almost, when it gets to that point, we call it switching the trigger. It's like almost jerking the trigger, but not quite. You just switch that trigger a little bit, the round goes down range. That takes a lot of getting used to and a lot of doing for it. And then you have all these different kinds of triggers out there. You know, I shot high power for, 35, 40 years. And I always shot the M1 Grand or the M14, shot the 1903 Springfield in a couple of matches because it was an old gun match. You couldn't have anything but bolt actions. Okay? What you're going to find on those rifles, and most of your military rifles, is there's a lot of slack in that trigger. You want to take that slack out of your trigger before you start your trigger squeeze. If you don't, you're going to jerk the trigger every time. It's just too far to pull it. So you have to take the slack out of your trigger. And I don't know why the military did it, but they did it. And then you squeeze your trigger. Then you have your Remington triggers. The old ones were really good. I bought a new rifle about 6, 7 years ago, and immediately, because it had an adjustable POS trigger in it, which is a piece of shit, I immediately went and bought a Timney trigger. I spent the extra, I paid $1,000 for a rifle with a shitty trigger on it. Okay? So I put a Timney in it. There's no slack in it, 2.5, 3 pounds, whatever they recommend. It was preset for me, and I love it now. And that rifle shoots half-minute of angles all day long. But when you get a real heavy trigger, you're gonna have to work at it. So get something you can live with. But most of your military triggers, you go back to Camp Perry, Ohio, or when they had it there, they'd weigh your trigger before you could, and put a marker on your trigger guard that you've been checked, but they weighed every trigger. And if you were under 4.5 pounds, you couldn't use that rifle on the range. So what we would do, we would take our triggers out, clean them in gas, because gas back then was really good, and it would dry stuff out. Put the trigger in, they weigh up to 4.5 pounds or a little more. We'd put a little bit of oil on them, and then we were 3.35 or 3.75. Okay, lighten that trigger up. Wasn't cheating; it was just part of the way you played the game. Okay, so much on triggers, but there's so damn many triggers out there that you have to deal with. Get the one you like the best and the rifle you like the best, and that's what you use. In all my hunting rifles, I put Timney triggers in all of those. People might not say they're the best, but you know, they work for me. And I've got everything from 1903 Springfields to 98 Mausers, all the way up to brand new Remingtons. So they all have Timneys in them. Let's talk about trace. How do we read trace? The trace is actually the waves that the bullet makes makes going down range. At 4, 5, 6, 700 yards, I can really read trace good. Traces just breaks the. I have to get right behind the shooter to read it. Look through my spot scope. When he touches it off, I can actually see that bullet go down range and impact the target. The only thing is it impacts the target low for me. So I can only tell him he hit the target. I can't tell him exactly where he hit on the target. I know some guys that can read trace and they can read it right down to the right exactly where it's at. But I guess I've got something, a little stigmatism or something in my mind that just doesn't let me do it. You know, this would be a good time for you to subscribe to our channel. We've got some great stuff coming up in the future, so subscribe now, share it with somebody, and we'll see you on the next one. The next one, we're going to the range. And so as soon as this pandemic is over, we're going to get to the range and we'll get the other 2 sessions out of the way, get them done for you, so you'll have a full session of this class.